David Mitchell stood at the kitchen window, watching his 5-year-old daughter Emma chase butterflies in their backyard. The morning sun caught her golden curls as she giggled and spun in circles, her small hands reaching toward the colorful wings dancing just beyond her grasp. For a moment, his heart felt light. Then reality crashed back down like a wave against rocks. It had been 18 months since Sarah died, 18 months since cancer stole his wife, Emma's mother, and the brightest light in their world. Most days, David managed to function normally. He got Emma ready for school, went to work at the accounting firm, picked her up from daycare, made dinner, helped with bath time, and read bedtime stories. But in quiet moments like this, the grief still hit him like a punch to the chest. "Daddy, look!" Emma called from the garden, holding up a dandelion. "I found a flower for Mommy's picture." David forced a smile and opened the kitchen door. "That's beautiful, sweetheart. Mommy would love it." Emma had been only 3 when Sarah passed. Sometimes David wondered if that was a blessing or a curse. She remembered her mother in fragments, the smell of vanilla perfume, the sound of lullabies, the feeling of warm hugs. But she didn't fully understand that Mommy wasn't coming back. She still asked questions that broke David's heart into 1,000 pieces. "When will Mommy come home from the Star Place?" she had asked just last week. David had knelt down to her level, choosing his words carefully. "Remember what we talked about? Mommy is watching us from heaven now. She can't come home, but she's always with us in here." He had pointed to Emma's heart. Emma had nodded seriously, but David could see the confusion in her bright blue eyes. Sarah's eyes. Sometimes the resemblance was so strong it took his breath away. The doorbell rang, interrupting his thoughts. David glanced at the clock. 8:30 on a Saturday morning seemed early for visitors. He dried his hands on a dish towel and walked to the front door, Emma skipping behind him with her dandelion. Through the peephole, he saw a woman with auburn hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing jeans and a soft green sweater. She held a covered dish in her hands and looked nervous. David opened the door cautiously. "Can I help you?" "Hi," the woman said with a warm smile. "I'm Claire Walsh. I just moved in next door about a week ago. I wanted to introduce myself and bring you something." She held up the covered dish. "It's a casserole, nothing fancy, but I thought you might appreciate not having to cook tonight." David blinked in surprise. He hadn't even noticed someone moving into the house next door. The elderly couple who lived there, the Hendersons, had moved to a retirement community a month ago. Between work and Emma and just trying to make it through each day, he hadn't paid attention to much else. "That's very kind of you," he said. "I'm David Mitchell, and this is my daughter Emma." Emma peeked out from behind David's legs, suddenly shy. She clutched her dandelion tightly. Claire crouched down to Emma's level. "What a pretty flower, Emma. I love dandelions. Did you know if you blow on them and make a wish, it might come true?" Emma's eyes widened. "Really?" "Really," Claire said with a gentle nod. "But you have to believe in the wish with your whole heart." Emma looked at the dandelion thoughtfully, then back at Claire. "Are you a nice lady?" "Emma," David said quickly, embarrassed, "you can't just ask people that." But Claire laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "It's okay. That's a very important question, Emma. Yes, I try to be a nice lady. I like helping people and making new friends." Emma studied Claire's face with the intense concentration only children possess. After a moment, she nodded as if she had made an important decision. "Would you like to come in for coffee?" David found himself asking, surprising himself. He hadn't invited anyone into their home since the funeral, but something about Claire seemed safe, comfortable. "I'd like that," Claire said, "if you're sure I'm not imposing." "Not at all," David said, stepping aside to let her in. "Coffee's actually ready. I was just having a quiet morning before we tackle the grocery store. Claire followed them into the kitchen, looking around with genuine interest. David tried to see the space through her eyes. It was clean but basic. Sarah had been the decorator, the one who made their house feel like a home. Since she died, David had maintained things but hadn't added anything new. The walls seemed bare, the colors muted. "You have a lovely home," Claire said, accepting the coffee cup David offered. "Thank you," David replied, though they both knew it was just politeness. Emma climbed onto her chair at the kitchen table and placed her dandelion carefully in front of her. "Daddy makes good coffee," she announced. "Mommy used to say so." David's chest tightened. Claire glanced at him with understanding eyes. "I bet your mommy was very smart," Claire said gently. "She was the smartest," Emma said proudly, "and the prettiest, and she smelled like cookies and flowers. Daddy says she's watching us from the Star Place now." Claire's expression softened. "The Star Place sounds very special." David appreciated that Claire didn't offer empty platitudes or awkward condolences. She simply accepted Emma's explanation with the same seriousness Emma had offered it. "What about you?" Emma asked, turning her attention to Claire with childlike directness. "Do you have a mommy in the Star Place too?" "Emma," David started, but Claire waved him off gently. "My mommy and daddy live in a place called Florida," Claire said. "It's very warm there, and they have a pool in their backyard. They're not in the Star Place yet, but they're far away." "Why did you move here?" Emma asked. Claire took a sip of her coffee, considering her answer. "Sometimes grown-ups need to start over in a new place. I wanted to find somewhere peaceful where I could paint pictures and make new friends." "You paint pictures?" Emma's face lit up with excitement. "I love pictures. Daddy, can Claire see my pictures?" Before David could respond, Emma had hopped down from her chair and raced toward the living room. She returned with a stack of drawings, mostly stick figures and rainbow houses in bright crayon colors. Claire examined each drawing with genuine attention, asking questions about the purple dog and the house with 17 windows. Emma glowed under the attention. "These are wonderful," Claire said. "You're a real artist. Have you ever painted with watercolors?" Emma shook her head. "Maybe sometime I could show you," Claire offered, then looked quickly at David. "If your daddy says it's okay, of course." David felt a flutter of something he couldn't quite name. Panic? Hope? "That's very kind of you," he said carefully. They talked for another hour. David learned that Claire was a freelance graphic designer who had recently gone through a divorce. She had moved to their quiet suburban neighborhood seeking peace and a fresh start. She was originally from Oregon, loved hiking and cooking, and had no children of her own, but enjoyed spending time with kids. Emma seemed completely charmed by their new neighbor. She showed Claire her favorite stuffed animal, demonstrated her ability to hop on one foot, and insisted on giving her a tour of their backyard garden. "These are Mommy's flowers," Emma explained, pointing to a patch of struggling roses. "Daddy tries to take care of them, but they're sad now." David felt his face flush with embarrassment. He had tried to maintain Sarah's garden, but he lacked her green thumb. The roses looked scraggly, and half the flowers had died over the winter. "Sometimes plants just need a little extra love," Claire said kindly. "I have some experience with gardens. Maybe I could give you some tips sometime." When Claire finally left, promising to return the casserole dish later, Emma watched from the window as their new neighbor walked back to her house. "I like her, Daddy," Emma announced. "She has nice eyes." David had to admit he agreed. Claire's eyes were a warm brown, kind and patient. She had listened to Emma's chatter without seeming bored or overwhelmed. She had asked thoughtful questions and seemed genuinely interested in their answers. That evening, as David tucked Emma into bed, she held his face between her small hands. "Daddy, do you think Mommy sent Claire to be our friend?" The question caught David off guard. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Well, you always say Mommy is watching us. Maybe she saw that we were lonely and asked the angels to send someone nice to live next door. David felt his throat tighten with emotion. Maybe she did, Em. Maybe she did. Emma smiled and snuggled under her covers. I'm going to dream about watercolor painting tonight. After Emma fell asleep, David sat in his living room staring at Sarah's photograph on the mantelpiece. She smiled back at him from their wedding day, radiant in white lace, her eyes sparkling with joy and mischief. What do you think, Sarah? He whispered to the photograph. Would you approve of me making a new friend? The house remained silent, but David could almost hear Sarah's voice in his memory. David, you can't live like a hermit forever. Emma needs to see that it's okay to let people care about you. For the first time in 18 months, David allowed himself to consider the possibility that their carefully constructed world of two might have room for someone else. The thought terrified and exhilarated him in equal measure. That night, he dreamed of auburn hair and gentle laughter, and for the first time since Sarah died, he woke up without the crushing weight of loneliness pressing down on his chest. The casserole, when they ate it for lunch the next day, was delicious. Emma declared it almost as good as Mommy's mac and cheese, which, from a 5-year-old, was the highest possible praise. David found himself looking out the kitchen window more often, hoping to catch a glimpse of Claire in her yard. When he saw her tending to some potted plants on her back porch, he felt an unexpected lift in his spirits. Can we invite Claire for dinner? Emma asked as they cleaned up their lunch dishes. Maybe, David said. We'll see. But even as he said it, he was already planning what he might cook. It had been so long since he had wanted to make an effort for anyone besides Emma. The feeling was rusty and uncertain, like flexing a muscle that had been unused for too long. Maybe Emma was right. Maybe Sarah had sent them an angel after all. 3 weeks after Claire moved in next door, Emma's excited squealing from the backyard caught David's attention while he was reviewing tax documents at his home office desk. He looked out the window and saw his daughter running circles around Claire, who was kneeling in their flower garden with dirt-covered hands and a patient smile. David's heart jumped. He hadn't heard Emma laugh that freely since before Sarah got sick. He closed his laptop and walked outside, curious about what had sparked such joy. "Daddy, look!" Emma called, pointing to the rose bushes. "Claire is fixing Mommy's flowers. She says they were just sleeping, not dead." David approached the garden and stopped short. The transformation was remarkable. Claire had somehow coaxed new growth from plants he had been ready to remove. Fresh green shoots emerged from what he had thought were dead branches, and several roses showed signs of budding. "I hope you don't mind," Claire said, sitting back on her heels and brushing a strand of auburn hair from her face. "Emma saw me working in my own garden and asked if I could help with these. They just needed some proper pruning and feeding." "Mind? This is incredible," David said, crouching down to examine the roses more closely. "I thought they were gone. Sarah would be amazed." Claire's expression softened. She must have loved gardening. She did. She said plants were like people. They just needed the right care and attention to bloom. David touched one of the new green shoots gently. "I tried to keep them alive for Emma, but I don't have Sarah's touch." "You kept them alive through the winter," Claire pointed out. "That was the hard part. They just needed someone to see their potential." Emma plopped down in the dirt beside Claire, completely unconcerned about getting her clothes dirty. "Claire taught me about plant food and how to make the soil soft. Can we buy some flowers to plant too, Daddy? Claire says marigolds are easy and they're bright like the sun." David looked at his daughter's dirt-smudged face, glowing with excitement, and felt something shift in his chest. "I think that's a great idea." "Really?" Emma bounced up and down. "Can Claire come with us to the flower store?" David glanced at Claire, suddenly nervous. You don't have to. I'm sure you have better things to do on a Saturday than help us shop for plants. Actually, I was planning to visit the garden center anyway, Claire said with a warm smile. I'd love the company. An hour later, David found himself pushing a shopping cart through the garden center, while Emma and Claire examined every plant display with intense concentration. Emma had appointed herself as the official decision-maker, carefully considering each option with the seriousness of a master gardener. This one is too pointy, Emma declared about a display of succulents. And this one looks grumpy, she added, pointing to some dramatic purple pansies. Claire nodded solemnly at each assessment. You're right. We want happy flowers for your garden. David watched their interaction with a mixture of warmth and trepidation. Emma had taken to Claire immediately, in the way children sometimes did with certain adults. There was an easy comfort between them that reminded him painfully of how Emma had been with Sarah. How about these? Claire asked, stopping beside a display of bright yellow marigolds. Emma, what do you think? Emma examined the flowers carefully, touching their petals with gentle fingers. They look like tiny suns. Mommy would like these. She always said yellow was a happy color. Then these are perfect, Claire agreed. As they loaded flats of flowers into the cart, along with proper gardening tools and soil amendments, David felt both grateful and guilty. Grateful that someone cared enough to help them, guilty that he was enjoying himself when Sarah should have been there sharing this moment. Daddy, can we have lunch at the place with the good French fries? Emma asked as they loaded their purchases into David's SUV. Sure thing, David said, then looked at Claire. Would you like to join us? It's just a casual place, nothing fancy. Claire hesitated. I don't want to intrude on your family time. You're not intruding, David said, surprising himself with how much he meant it. Besides, Emma will talk about flowers and gardens through the entire meal. You might be the only one who can keep up with her. They ended up at a family restaurant with red vinyl booths and a kids' menu that came with crayons. Emma immediately began drawing while they waited for their food, narrating her artwork for Claire. This is our house, and this is your house, and this is the garden with the sunflowers, Emma explained, coloring enthusiastically. And this is me and Daddy and you planting flowers together. David noticed that Emma had drawn 3 stick figures in the garden, standing close together. The casual way she had included Claire in their family portrait made his chest tight with complex emotions. That's beautiful art, Claire said. You're getting really good at drawing people. Mommy used to draw with me, Emma said matter-of-factly. She was really good at drawing birds. Daddy can't draw birds. He says they look like flying potatoes when he tries. Claire laughed, a genuine sound of delight. Flying potatoes sounds pretty creative to me. Show her, Daddy, Emma encouraged. Absolutely not, David said firmly, but he was smiling. Some artistic failures are better left as secrets. Their food arrived, and the conversation flowed easily. Claire asked thoughtful questions about Emma's school and favorite activities. She listened to Emma's complicated explanation of why chocolate ice cream was better than vanilla, with the same attention she might give to an important business presentation. David found himself relaxing in a way he hadn't in months. Claire was easy to talk to, intelligent without being intimidating, funny without trying too hard. She shared stories about her own childhood, her move from Oregon, and her struggles to establish herself as a freelance designer. It's scary starting over, she admitted, as Emma colored and ate her chicken fingers. But sometimes you need to be brave enough to build something new. Is that why you moved here? David asked. Claire nodded, stirring her coffee thoughtfully. My ex-husband and I wanted different things. He wanted the corporate life in the big city, climbing ladders and accumulating things. I wanted something quieter, more meaningful. We tried to make it work for 3 years, but we were just making each other miserable. That must have been difficult. It was, but staying would have been worse. Sometimes the hardest thing is admitting that something isn't working, even when you really want it to. David understood that sentiment more than he cared to admit. He had been trying to make his life work as a single parent, but there were so many moments when he felt completely lost and inadequate. "What's your favorite thing about living here so far?" he asked. Claire glanced at Emma, who was now drawing what appeared to be a purple cat wearing a hat. "I like how quiet it is, and I like having good neighbors who let me help fix their gardens." Emma looked up from her drawing. "Do you like kids, Claire?" "I do," Claire said. "I always hoped to have children someday, but it didn't work out that way. I like spending time with kids, though. They see the world differently than grown-ups. Everything is more colorful and magical." "Mommy used to say that," Emma said thoughtfully. "She said kids have special eyes that can see wonder everywhere." David felt the familiar stab of grief mixed with something else. A warm feeling that Sarah would have liked Claire, that she would have approved of this friendship. After lunch, they returned home and spent the afternoon planting their new flowers. Claire patiently taught Emma how to prepare the soil, space the plants properly, and water them without drowning the roots. David found himself watching Claire's hands as she worked, noticing how gentle and sure her movements were. "The secret," Claire told Emma, "is to treat each plant like it's special. They respond to love just like people do." Emma nodded seriously, carefully patting soil around a marigold. "Mommy said that too. She said love makes everything grow better." As the afternoon wore on, David felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Contentment. Not the forced cheerfulness he maintained for Emma's sake, but genuine peace. Claire's presence felt natural, like she had always been part of their weekend routine. When the planting was finished, they stood back to admire their work. The garden looked transformed. Bright yellow marigolds nestled among the recovering roses, new life springing from what had seemed like loss. "It's beautiful," Emma declared. "Mommy would love it." "Yes," David said softly. "She would." That evening, after Claire had gone home and Emma was in bed, David sat on his back porch looking at their newly planted garden. For the first time since Sarah died, he allowed himself to imagine what it might be like to not be alone anymore. The thought still scared him, but it didn't feel impossible anymore. His phone buzzed with a text message. To his surprise, it was from Claire. "Thank you for letting me share your day. Emma is lucky to have such a wonderful daddy. Sleep well." David stared at the message for a long time before typing back, "Thank you for everything. Emma hasn't smiled this much in months. You have a gift with children." Her response came quickly. "She's easy to love, you both are." David read those words 3 times, his heart beating faster each time. He wasn't ready for anything complicated or serious, but maybe he was ready for friendship. Maybe he was ready to stop being afraid of letting someone care about them. The next morning, Emma woke up asking if they could check on their flowers. They found Claire already in her yard, watering her own plants. She waved when she saw them, and Emma immediately ran to the fence to tell her about the dreams she'd had about their garden. "I dreamed the flowers grew as tall as trees and had faces like people," Emma announced. "And they could talk, and they said thank you for planting them." "That sounds like a wonderful dream," Claire said. "Dreams about gardens are supposed to mean good things are coming." David felt his heart skip at those words. Maybe good things were coming. Maybe it was okay to hope for that again. As the days passed, a comfortable routine developed. Claire would often be working in her yard when David and Emma returned from school and work. Emma would race over to report on her day and check on their plants. Claire always listened with genuine interest, offering encouragement about Emma's spelling test or sympathy about playground drama. David found himself looking forward to these small daily conversations. Claire's presence became a bright spot in their routine, a reminder that life could still hold surprises and joy. 2 weeks later, on a rainy Saturday morning, Emma announced that she wanted to paint pictures of their flowers. David was setting up an elaborate plastic covering for the kitchen table when the doorbell rang. "I'll get it," Emma called, running to the door in her paint-stained smock. David followed, curious about who would visit so early on a rainy weekend. Through the doorway, he could see Claire holding an umbrella and a large bag. "I brought watercolors," Claire announced with a smile. "If you're interested in that painting lesson." Emma's shriek of joy probably woke the entire neighborhood. David felt his own excitement rise as he saw Emma's face light up with pure happiness. Maybe, David thought as he invited Claire in from the rain, maybe Emma had been right. Maybe Sarah had sent them an angel after all. The watercolor painting session turned into the best morning Emma had experienced since her mother died. Claire spread newspapers across the kitchen table and set up a proper painting station with brushes, water cups, and a palette of soft colors. Emma sat between David and Claire, her tongue poking out in concentration as she dabbed her brush in yellow paint. "Remember, watercolors like to be friends with water," Claire explained patiently. "You don't need very much paint, just enough to make the water colorful." Emma nodded seriously and carefully painted what she announced was the happiest son ever. David watched his daughter's face, marveling at her intense focus and joy. It had been so long since he'd seen her this engaged and excited about anything. "Your turn, Daddy," Emma commanded, pointing her brush at him. "Claire says you have to paint something too." "I don't think I'm much of an artist," David protested weakly. "Everyone's an artist," Claire said with an encouraging smile. "They just paint different things. What makes you happy?" David looked around the kitchen, his gaze settling on Emma's bright face, and then moving to Claire's warm brown eyes. "This," he said softly. "This makes me happy." Something passed between him and Claire in that moment, a recognition that made his heart race and his hands tremble slightly. He picked up his brush and began painting, letting the colors flow together without overthinking. They painted for over an hour, the kitchen filling with laughter and gentle conversation. Claire showed Emma techniques for blending colors and creating texture. She praised David's abstract swirls of blue and green, declaring them peaceful and beautiful. Emma created a series of paintings she called the Happy Garden Collection. When they finished, Claire helped Emma arrange all their artwork on the counter to dry. "We should have an art show," Emma announced, "like in the movies where fancy people drink tiny cups of coffee and look at pictures." "That sounds wonderful," Claire agreed. "We could invite your stuffed animals to be the audience." As Claire helped clean up the painting supplies, David found himself studying her profile. She moved through his kitchen with easy familiarity now, knowing where he kept the dish towels and how he liked things organized. When had she become so comfortable in their space? When had he started wanting her there? "Claire, do you want to stay for lunch?" Emma asked as they finished cleaning. "Daddy makes really good grilled cheese sandwiches, almost as good as Mommy's." David felt his face heat up at Emma's casual invitation, but Claire smiled warmly. "I'd love to, if your daddy doesn't mind having me underfoot for a while longer." "I don't mind," David said, meaning it completely. "Grilled cheese and tomato soup sound perfect for a rainy day." While David prepared lunch, Claire and Emma set the table together, chattering about their paintings and planning what they might paint next time. David listened to their easy conversation with a mixture of contentment and growing awareness that this felt like more than friendship. Over lunch, Emma told Claire about her school friends and her favorite books. Claire listened with the same attention she'd given adult conversation, asking thoughtful questions and showing genuine interest in Emma's answers. "Miss Rodriguez says I'm getting really good at reading," Emma reported proudly. "She says I might get to help the younger kids learn their letters." "That's wonderful," Claire said. "Reading is like magic. It lets you visit any place you can imagine." "Mommy used to say that too," Emma said, taking a bite of her sandwich. She said books were like doors to other worlds. David tensed slightly, waiting for the familiar shadow to fall over their conversation, but Claire simply nodded thoughtfully. Your mommy sounds like she was very wise. What was her favorite book? Emma's face lit up. She loved the one about the secret garden, where the little girl finds the hidden place and makes everything grow again with her friends. Mommy said it was about how love can make beautiful things happen, even in sad places. David felt his throat tighten with emotion. He hadn't heard Emma talk about Sarah's favorite book in months. The fact that she felt comfortable sharing it with Claire felt significant somehow. That's one of my favorite books, too, Claire said gently. I think your mommy and I would have been good friends. Emma considered this seriously. I think so, too. You both like flowers and painting and making things beautiful. After lunch, the rain continued, so they settled in the living room. Emma curled up on the couch between David and Claire, insisting that Claire read aloud from one of her picture books. David found himself relaxing into the domestic comfort of the moment. Claire's soft voice filling the room as Emma snuggled contentedly against his side. When Emma fell asleep during the second story, David carefully moved her to rest against the couch pillows. Claire helped him cover her with a soft throw blanket. She's exhausted, David whispered. All that excitement and creativity wore her out. They moved quietly to the kitchen, leaving Emma sleeping peacefully in the living room where they could keep an eye on her. Thank you, David said as he started a pot of coffee. For the painting, for lunch, for being so wonderful with her. Emma hasn't been this happy in a long time. Claire settled at the kitchen table, her expression thoughtful. She's an amazing little girl, David. You're doing an incredible job with her. Most days I feel like I'm barely keeping my head above water, David admitted, sitting across from her. I love her more than anything, but being a single parent is harder than I ever imagined. Sarah would be proud of you, Claire said quietly. I can see how much love and care you put into every decision you make for Emma. David felt tears prick at his eyes unexpectedly. Some days I'm not sure about anything. I worry I'm not enough for her, that she needs things I can't give her. Like what? A mother's touch. Someone who understands girl things and can braid hair properly and knows what to do when she has bad dreams about monsters. David ran his hands through his hair. I'm learning as I go, but I know there are things I'm missing. Claire reached across the table and touched his hand gently. David, you're not missing anything that matters. Emma feels loved and safe and valued. Those are the most important things. Her touch sent warmth up his arm and straight to his heart. David looked down at their joined hands, marveling at how right it felt. Can I ask you something? Claire said softly. David nodded. What was Sarah like? I feel like I know her through Emma's stories and through you, but I'd love to hear more. David was quiet for a moment, considering how to capture Sarah in words. She was light, he finally said. She could walk into any room and make it brighter just by being there. She found joy in small things, the first cup of coffee in the morning, finding a perfect shell on the beach, watching Emma discover something new. Claire listened intently, her thumb moving gently across his knuckles. She was also incredibly strong, David continued. When she got sick, she faced it with such courage. Her biggest worry wasn't about dying, it was about leaving Emma and me. She made me promise to keep living, to not let grief steal all the good things from our lives. She sounds extraordinary. She was, and she would have loved you, David said, the words coming out before he could stop them. She would have loved how patient you are with Emma, how you see beauty everywhere, how you make ordinary moments feel special. Their eyes met across the table, and David felt something shift between them. The air seemed charged with possibility and longing. David, Claire said softly, But before she could continue, Emma's voice carried from the living room. "Daddy, where are you?" They pulled apart quickly, both of them slightly breathless. David went to check on Emma, finding her sitting up on the couch with sleepy eyes and mussed hair. "How was your nap, sweetheart?" he asked, sitting beside her. "Good. I dreamed about painting pictures with you and Claire." Emma rubbed her eyes and looked around the room. "Is Claire still here?" "I'm right here," Claire said, appearing in the doorway. Emma smiled and reached for Claire's hand. "Will you come see my room? I want to show you my special treasures." David started to intervene. Emma's room contained many reminders of Sarah that might be painful to explain. But Claire squeezed his hand reassuringly. "I'd love to see your treasures," Claire told Emma. Emma led them upstairs to her bedroom, which was decorated in soft pastels with butterflies painted on the walls. Sarah had spent weeks on those butterflies when they were preparing for Emma's birth, carefully painting each wing with delicate detail. "Mommy painted these," Emma announced proudly, pointing to the butterflies. "She said butterflies are magical because they start as one thing and become something completely different and beautiful." "They're gorgeous," Claire said with genuine admiration. "Your mommy was very talented." Emma opened her treasure box, a small jewelry box covered in pink fabric. Inside were her most precious possessions, a locket with Sarah's picture, a pressed flower from her mother's funeral bouquet, a smooth stone they'd found together at the beach. "This is my remembering box," Emma explained. "When I miss Mommy too much, I look at these things and remember how much she loved me." Claire knelt down to Emma's level, her eyes soft with understanding. "What a beautiful way to keep your mommy close to your heart." Emma carefully picked up the locket and opened it to show Claire the tiny photo inside. "Daddy says Mommy watches over us from heaven. Do you think she can see us right now?" "I think if there's a heaven, your mommy would never want to miss a single moment of watching you grow up," Claire said gently. Emma nodded seriously, then looked at Claire with the intense stare that preceded her most important pronouncements. "Claire, do you think Mommy would like you?" David held his breath, unprepared for this question and uncertain how Claire would handle it. Claire considered the question thoughtfully. "I hope so. I think if she loved you and your daddy as much as I can see she did, then we would probably understand each other pretty well." Emma studied Claire's face carefully, then broke into a bright smile. "I think she does like you. Sometimes I feel her happy feelings, and I feel them when you're here too." David felt his chest tighten with emotion at Emma's innocent wisdom. They spent the rest of the afternoon in comfortable domesticity. Claire helped Emma organize her art supplies while David prepared dinner. They all cooked together, Claire showing Emma how to measure ingredients properly while David managed the stove. During dinner, Emma chattered about her plans for their next painting session and asked Claire about her own artwork. Claire shared stories about paintings she'd done and places she'd traveled for inspiration. "Maybe sometime you could paint a picture of our garden," Emma suggested. "With all the flowers we planted together." "I'd love to do that," Claire agreed. As the evening wound down, Claire gathered her things to leave. Emma hugged her tightly at the front door. "Thank you for the best painting day ever," Emma said. "Will you come back soon?" "If your daddy says it's okay, I'd love to come back very soon," Claire replied, looking at David over Emma's head. "You're always welcome here," David said, meaning it completely. After Claire left, David helped Emma get ready for bed. As he tucked her in, Emma looked up at him with sleepy but serious eyes. "Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart?" Emma was quiet for a moment, seeming to gather her thoughts. "I really like Claire." "I can tell. She likes you too." Emma nodded, then took a deep breath. "Daddy, she's just like Mommy." David froze, his heart stopping completely. "What do you mean, Em?" She makes everything feel warm and safe and happy, Emma explained with 5-year-old logic. And she loves flowers and painting and making beautiful things. And she listens to me like what I say is important. And when she smiles, it makes the whole room brighter. David sat heavily on the edge of Emma's bed, overwhelmed by his daughter's innocent observation. She was right. Claire did make everything feel warm and safe and happy. She did bring light into their rooms and their lives. And Daddy? Emma continued softly. When Claire is here, you smile your real smile again, not the trying to be happy smile. Your happy all the way to your eyes smile like you used to have with Mommy. David felt tears building behind his eyes, out of the mouths of babes. Emma had seen what he had been afraid to acknowledge, that he was falling in love again, that Claire had somehow slipped past his defenses and into his heart. Do you think that's okay? He asked his daughter quietly. Emma reached up and touched his face with her small hand. Daddy, I think Mommy would want us to be happy, and Claire makes us happy. David leaned down and kissed Emma's forehead. I love you, little wise woman. I love you too, Daddy, and I think it's okay if you love Claire too. There's lots of room in our hearts. After Emma fell asleep, David sat in his bedroom looking at the framed photo of Sarah on his nightstand. For months after she died, he had talked to that picture, asking for guidance and forgiveness and strength. Tonight, he had a different kind of conversation. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, he whispered to Sarah's smiling face. I never expected to feel this way about anyone again. I'm scared, Sarah. I'm scared of dishonoring your memory, of confusing Emma, of getting hurt again. He sat in the quiet darkness, remembering Sarah's laugh, her terrible jokes, the way she'd made him feel like the luckiest man in the world. But Emma's right, he continued. Claire does make us happy. She makes me want to be better, to try harder, to believe in possibilities again. I think you would like her. I think you'd want me to be brave enough to try. David picked up the photograph and held it gently. I will always love you, Sarah. You'll always be Emma's first mommy, my first love, the one who taught me that hearts can hold infinite amounts of love. But maybe love doesn't have to end when life changes. Maybe there's room for both, honoring what we had and being open to what might be. The next morning, David woke up with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in months. As he made breakfast, he could see Claire working in her garden through the kitchen window. His heart lifted at the sight of her, and for the first time since Sarah died, he didn't feel guilty about that feeling. Emma bounced into the kitchen, already dressed and ready for the day. Can we ask Claire to come to my school play next week? Emma asked, climbing into her chair. I'm going to be a flower in the spring pageant, and I want her to see me. David looked at his daughter's hopeful face and made his decision. Yes, sweetheart. I think Claire would love to see you be a flower. And Daddy? Emma added, with the casual wisdom that continued to amaze him. Maybe after my play we could all go for ice cream. You know, like a family. David felt his heart expand with love and possibility. Like a family, he repeated softly. I think that sounds perfect. Through the kitchen window, he could see Claire looking up from her flowers and waving at them. David waved back, and when she smiled that bright, room-lighting smile, he felt the last walls around his heart begin to crumble. Maybe Emma was right about everything. Maybe Mommy had sent them an angel. Maybe love really could bloom again in ground that had known loss. Maybe there was room in their hearts and their lives for all of it. The love they'd had, the love they'd lost, and the love that was just beginning to grow. As Emma chattered excitedly about her upcoming performance and Claire's probable reaction to it, David allowed himself to imagine a future he'd been afraid to hope for. A future where their carefully constructed world of two could become a loving family of three, where laughter filled their house again, where someone would be there to braid Emma's hair and chase away the monsters and share the daily joys and challenges of raising an extraordinary little girl. For the first time since Sarah died, David Mitchell believed that happy endings were possible, and it all started with a little girl's innocent wisdom. "Daddy, she's just like Mommy."